one.
All right, so for lesson 421, again, y'all should be watching these videos after the quiz tomorrow. And just keep in mind that I won't be here. It's Monday, it's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I'm out. Feel free to text or email me if you have questions, or ask Miss Weaver, who will be with y'all. Let's talk about 421 and 422. So in 4.1, let's jump into it, module 1. You were dealing with one type of data or one set of data. Just comparing it using some different means or methods. In this lesson, we're going to be dealing with two sets of data. So joint data, right? And doing stuff with that. This first lesson is pretty easy. So we're going to talk about frequency tables in 421. So here's some essential questions. Pause, read those, think about them for a second. Here we go. Information about people who are surveyed can be captured in a two-way frequency table. A two-way frequency table is a table of data that separates responses by characteristics of the respondents. We'll get into what all that means. Don't worry too much about it. This first one here, you have a table. You have multiple responses, you have multiple characteristics, and then you have A, B, C, and D, which are responses of that. Okay? So, make sure you read this and look. A couple of things I want to focus on, though. A trend is some kind of pattern that you would see in the data. So if I ask you what the trend is, I'm asking for what patterns can be seen. But what's really important for this is something called joint frequency and marginal frequency. So the joint frequency we can find by looking at the response for each individual thing. So A, B, C, and D would be joint frequencies. Marginal frequencies are the total of each group. Now, you're going to have to go back and include, you're going to create a little total chart so that we can find these. So, like, the total people who have response 1 is A plus C. The total people who have response 2 is B plus D. The total people that have characteristic 1 are A plus B. That have characteristic 2 are C plus D. And down here, what we're going to end up doing is creating another row and column. And what we have down here is the overall total, which is A plus B plus C plus D. Right? It's all of the above. Okay? These totals that we just added, those would be your marginal frequencies. The way I think about it is that they are in the margins of the chart, like the margins on your paper or the edges, right? But you have to understand that they're not always included. Like I had to just include them in my chart. Sometimes they'll be there. Sometimes you'll see that row for total at the bottom, that column for total on the far right, but not always, okay? All right, so moving on. A conditional relative frequency allows a comparison to be made for multiple responses in a single row, single column, or the whole table. Relative frequencies are expressed as a percentage, usually written as a decimal. They are found by dividing the number of responses by either the total number of people that gave that response, the total number of people with that given characteristic, or the total number of respondents. In the sample table, A divided by A plus B is the relative frequency for response 1. For people with characteristic 1. We will do a lot of examples of this, but basically there's a relative row frequency, there's a conditional row frequency, there's a conditional column frequency, and then there's the conditional table frequency. And it'll be clear which one's which, but it just depends on the way the question is worded. All right, so let's move on. So first, example 1 here. Cameron surveys students in his school who play sports and asks them which sport they prefer. He records the responses below. So these are your joint frequencies. Okay, those are all joint frequencies. If I want to find the marginal frequencies, then I need to include totals. Okay, so the total here, if I were to add that up, would be 72. The total here would be 116. and the total here would be 49. Okay, if I did the total number of males, the total number of guys who were polled or whatever, that would be 16 plus 42 is 52 is 68. So 117. I think I did my math right there. Double check that. And then the next one would be 23 plus 64 plus 33. That's 120. So 120 females. Those would be your marginal frequencies. Okay. And now, not included in that, but also equally good to know, is the overall total. How many people total were surveyed? And so that's going to be 237. All right. And you should be able to find that by adding up the column, right? Adding those totals, or by adding this bottom row. They should add up the same, right? Because it should add up the same total. Okay. If it doesn't, then obviously something's incorrect. Now, let's go back to the question. It says, what is the number of people, what is the joint frequency of male students who prefer soccer? So, first off, I want to look at the males, okay? And I want to look at soccer. So, where do those two things meet? The answer is 52. So, there are 52 students that prefer soccer that are male. Now, it doesn't ask us to in this problem, but I could find the relative column frequency of males who prefer soccer, right? So in other words, that'd be what percentage of students that prefer soccer are male. Well, that'd be 52 out of 116, right? So I divide that. Or I could say, what's the percentage of males, so we're only looking at the males, who prefer soccer? Well, that would be 52 out of 117. Okay, or I could say, what out of all the total students, what is the percentage of students that like the soccer and are male? That would be looking at the 52 out of the whole 237. Okay, so it's very easy to get confused about which one's which. So it's all about the wording of the question, which is going to get some of y'all. Okay, so make sure you pay attention to that. Okay, next example. It says, Abigail surveys students in different grades and asks each student which pet they prefer. The responses are in the table below. What is the marginal frequency? So the first thing we have to do is say, okay, if I need marginal frequency, I need my totals. Have to have totals. So 10 people prefer birds. That's 85 people prefer cats. Dogs would be 117, and then fish is 32. All right. So then we can add up the total numbers. For grade 9, it's going to be 3 plus 49 plus 53 plus 22, which is 127. So 127 ninth graders were surveyed. 7 plus 36 plus 64 plus 10 is 117. So 117 10th graders. And then total people surveyed should come out to 244. So it says, what is the marginal frequency of each type of pet? Okay, so the marginal frequency for birds is 10. The marginal frequency for cat is 85. The marginal frequency for dog is 117. And for fish is 32. Now, what does that tell you? That should tell you that cat and dog are overwhelmingly the preference for most people, and that dog is the most popular option. All right, so I will pause the video there, and because the next one is going to deal with those conditional frequencies where we're having to do some division. Make sure you get the core concept of how these are set up, because when you start having to do the conditional stuff, that's when it gets tricky. Okay.